There we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our live panel discussion today, part of the Fixed Ops Strategies webcast mastermind series. This is one of 6 different auto retail marketing related webcast panels that we do on a periodic, almost monthly basis. Appreciate you being here. I'm Ryan Girardi. Today is Tuesday, March 4th and March 24th. Forgot that we're 24 days into the month. We're running this live. It's a Zoom webinar streaming live. I'll check the live chat in a few minutes. Quite a panel lined up. As you can see from the title, our focus today is on the sudden critical role that fixed ops will be playing, is already playing. Let me bring on, we have quite a group of panelists. You might not be able to see everybody at the same time, but hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
We've been up here for the past, 20, 30 minutes here, getting acquainted. Some of the panelists know each other, some do not. And so we don't need to do individual introductions. You see everybody's names there, but quite a crowd today. And thank you guys for being here, everybody.
Did you just put hand sanitizer on?
I did not. I actually a little bit out of my element at the moment. I don't know why. I don't know why. Okay. I do this all the time. So I'm just kind of like, usually I have in front of me, I have a checklist of things I need to, say and do. And I scrapped that today.
Sure.
And so my eyes are running the checklist here. But we have a lot of people here. It's going to be a good conversation. We've got Jeff King and Ed Roberts here from Bozard Ford Lincoln in St. Augustine. Ed has been up here pretty regular part of the conversation here. So what I'd like to do, Ed, for the first time you guys talk, introduce yourselves, what company you're with, right? Who you represent, just for the audience's sake. And folks that are either watching the live feed or the recording, I'm going to share some links while everyone's talking. So Ed, if you could introduce yourself, and what I'd love to hear from you is, what is your world like right now that's either different or even the same from as little as a week or 2 weeks ago?
Well, the only thing that's the same about it is we're working on cars. Everything else has changed. But I'm Ed Roberts, Fixed Operations Director at Bozard Ford Lincoln here in sunny Florida, St. Augustine, Florida. We're only about 88 degrees here. So for some of you guys that may make you a little jealous, I know Lumina's down in South Florida, so she might be a little warmer down there. But every aspect of our business has changed, from how we drive customers in, how we take care of them while they're here, our action throughout the day, what we're doing inside of our buildings. Everything's different. And that's the key part of it. But one of the key elements to making all that happen and to continue to do business is you got to lead your people, because they're all looking for answers. Every single one of them. They don't have a clue. They want to be told what to do. And you want ideas from them, and you'll take their ideas. But at the end of it, you got to have a direction. You got to spread that out amongst them and roll with it. And we've taken all of our buildings. We have 4 buildings on campus. We've sent some people home to work from home. We sent some people home that are at risk, that probably shouldn't be exposed no matter what. And we've gave different people different job roles. We took every building and we maintain less than 50 people in every building. We did some things in the sales department. Jeff can talk about that in a few minutes, with rotating shifts there. The demand on my side of the business hasn't dropped enough to rotate shifts on my side. We're running as close to full capacity as you could expect with what's going on. I have about 12% of my staff out for various different reasons, either self-quarantined or at risk or whatever the situation may be. And we're down about 20% in business. So that's not that far off for the people that I have here. When our traffic's down a bit, but our transaction value's up, and anytime you can slow the transaction down, you can usually make it more valuable. And that's certainly taking place here. But our customers are loving what we're doing. We're keeping a log of everybody that comes in. We're asking them a couple of questions just to find out where they've been, if they've been exposed to anybody, or if they're sick themselves. We actually had someone that's told us that they was just coming off of a cruise, so we didn't let them in on our building. We did all their stuff outside. But everything we do is different. I'm moving advisors out into the lane. We've always brought our customers inside. We've looked for ways to do that differently, but we're kind of forced to do a lot of things right now. So everybody's got to step outside their comfort box a bit.
Is there a daily either routine or a requirement for employees as they, come in and out of the building? Or is there protective measures that you're requiring?
So we're logging our employees as well. We're requiring everybody that touches customers' vehicles to stay sanitized and wipe down the customer's vehicle as well as our vehicles when they come back from being rented or being used for pickup and delivery. We have different employees going around the dealership cleaning touch points from a customer standpoint, and then a different employee cleaning touch points on an employee standpoint. So that different people go in there, and that's ongoing. We are signing and leaving a note inside of our customers' cars, letting them know that we desanitized it, and signing it with the person who did it, just to give them a little sense of security that we value their safety. So some of that stuff, we're doing it regardless. But when you do that, that's the showpiece that shows our customer that, hey, you're important to us. But we've had one customer put a negative Facebook post out there that says, hey, they interrogated me when I came in the door and whatever else. They're violating my HIPAA rights. We're not violating anybody's rights. We want to keep everybody safe. And they kind of, when they post that kind of stuff out there, it kind of shows to everybody else that we are doing something. And he's telling them what we're doing for us. We don't have to tell them. And but most of our customers are appreciative of us doing it. And we had one customer call in today and cancel his appointment because he was exposed to somebody that was diagnosed with it last Saturday, and he had an appointment for tomorrow, and he called in and canceled because they know that he was in prior to that when we was screening and asking questions, and he rescheduled to come back in, and then he canceled that because of that. So we'll get him back in when this is all over, but customers are appreciative that we're taking action in it.
And it's good that they would take that responsibility too, because you hear stories of people that know they're affected and are not taking protective measures, and we're all susceptible to that. Jeff, I'd like to turn to you. I think I shared the link a little bit before you got up here, so you might not be able to see it, but what I'm going to do is share it on my screen for everybody. NADA, make sure I got the right post up here. You guys see the NADA tweet here?
Yes.
Okay. So NADA posted the other day, keep the country healthy, give Americans the ability to procure their basic needs. Vehicle sales departments at dealerships must remain open. Our country cannot risk losing access to personal transportation. Now, naturally, this produced some comments, some pushback arguing that dealerships, and not specific to sales or service, but that dealerships are not essential. Jeff, you're vice president of Bozard Ford, you said, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Vice president and general manager. And, when probably a week and a half ago, when this first started really kind of rearing its head, the immediate thing that we went into was if we were going to have our employees working at the dealership, that we had to protect them and put them in a safe environment. And we've been very diligent since the beginning on making sure that we are following every guideline that we can put together. I think the fact that we have probably still, what'd you say, Ed, 12% of your people were out. I'd say overall, we probably have 30% of the people, 35% of the people out of the building, either working remotely or out. But it's allowed us to do a lot of things, but the health and safety of your own people is the guiding principle on whether you can be open or not.
And I'd love to hear thoughts, just general, if any, from anybody here about the same question, right? Do you consider dealerships and their operations essential? For some reason, I can't bring the
well, and Ryan,
I'll
one other thing, if I could, we from a sales standpoint, we have 675 vehicles that are ordered for government agencies that are ordered with Ford and have not been delivered yet. Now, not all of them are built, but a lot of them are. And the government agencies are expecting those cars.
So they need them too.
Right.
Well, and I'd like to point something out, because I'm in a state, a no-sale state, New Jersey, which is surrounded by no-sale states, Pennsylvania, New York, and Delaware, which is pretty horrendous. I mean, last week we talked, it was just looking at Nevada, and Nevada actually had a carve-out, and now nobody can sell anything. And I got to point out one real inconsistency, right? If I go to my local Hertz location, I can rent a car, with a counter experience over the counter. I mean, I'm sure they're doing their best to not spread the virus as well. But I see a basic problem with not letting a dealer sell a car. But any of the rental locations, Hertz, Avis, they're all open. They can all rent cars. And it's 100% okay. So I don't understand one health risk versus the other health risk. It's just one is classified as retail and the other classified as vital transportation.
Right.
And I think that's a real inconsistency here.
Well, and we are preparing in the event that we have to go and close the showroom. But I don't think closing the showroom means shutting down our sales department. I think we can still sell half a dozen cars a day with no showroom open. You can do it virtually.
Absolutely.
We do it now.
Except they don't allow us to in Jersey or Pennsylvania or New York. I mean, it is a no sale requirement. They shut down the DMVs.
Yeah.
And as we learned last week, Nevada governor did the same thing. I was expecting that to, nationally follow suit. I'm glad that it hasn't. But Jeff, and people in the industry know that. It's like, hey, this is the time to really get your whole, e-commerce, aspect. But yeah, you don't have to be in the showroom to deliver a car. And that's what Carvana is all about. Owen, if I could maybe turn to you, because you're right there in the battlefield interfacing with dealers now, obviously remotely. But what's the dialogue and the narrative that you're with your counterparts like Ed and Jeff?
Yeah, it's been a challenging couple of weeks, obviously, as a vendor. With everything that's kind of happening. I mean, I'm seeing, luckily, Bozard obviously is not having the same challenges that a lot of dealerships have, but I'm seeing 75, 80% layoff rates and things like that. And it's causing a lot of confusion, a lot of challenges with customers that still want to purchase a vehicle. Obviously, the OEMs have come out with some very attractive offers to try to help customers, from low interest rate, 0% for 84 months, no payments for 120 days, things like that. So it ends up being kind of a back and forth between the dealerships and the consumers, and that makes it tough. I mean, that makes it tough for everybody. So I do think that one of the things that they should do is, and maybe this isn't a national thing, but obviously as they look at different pockets of the country, really be clear. Are we open for sales? Are we open for service? I do have a dealership right now that has one sales rep for each of their stores and one finance guy for the whole group, because they furloughed everybody else because, at this point, there's just no traffic, there's no business. And that makes it tough. So at the end of the day, as far as I'm not obviously the CEO over here at Fix Ops Digital. We're a digital marketing company that's been helping dealerships with their message online, whether it's content, getting their services out there. I think that's becoming more important than ever. And so we've been busy. I mean, we've had a lot of dealerships that have called us looking for ways to get that message out there, because I love the fact, that both Ed and Jeff, were saying that when they get to the store, there's protocol. But I think we always knew that people were out looking for this type of information even before the COVID pandemic hit. And our thoughts were sort of validated today. WordStream came out with a article that with their data, the search for parts and service since the COVID pandemic has come into play has increased 44%. So it's more important than ever to get that information out there so your customers do feel comfortable not only knowing what to expect when they get there, But if you have like a delivery and pickup service, for example, it was probably something that you didn't really think too much about, but now it's essential. So just having content online, having stuff in there that you can actually, really talk to the customer without actually having them call into the store or get there, I think is important. And so, as we continue to kind of navigate through this, obviously we're being very, very cognizant of what, of how to do it, because a lot of dealerships are really struggling right now and that type of thing. But the content that we're providing, I know that the customers that we're working with anyways have been very thankful and appreciative that we've stepped up early and helped them get through those first couple of days. And now we're, this is changing hourly. So, it's a fluid situation for sure. But, we're built for this. I mean, as a content house, as a SEO company, as a company that builds a lot of content month in and month out for our stores, this actually fits right into our wheelhouse. So we haven't seen a lot of changes in our day to day, other than the changes of how are we communicating that message out there, if that makes sense.
This is really key that the article, like you said, this is reflecting search volume, right? Not ad spend, right? Average change in.
No, it's search volume. It's search volume. Yes.
Okay. And so what we're seeing here is a 42% drop in dealers and a drop in parts and accessories, but an increase in repair.
Yes. Yeah. And that's just since, mid-January when this kind of all happened. So it just tells me that overall, a lot of people are now looking at, how to keep my vehicle running in good condition during this time. Maybe they don't want to, put that extra loan amount onto their personal life at this point. And, I think it was because, we knew that 2020 was going to be the year of fixed ops. We were poised and right after NADA, I had about 5-6 speaking engagements here across the country that got canceled because everybody is now focusing on this side of the business even more than they have been. This just brings it even farther into light, with something like this, because, and you're not talking about just anomalies, right? I mean, Bozard Ford is definitely an anomaly. I've seen a couple other dealerships that have had really good weekends selling cars and having their service departments full. But, in California, most of it's a ghost town. Chicago, it's a ghost town. These markets that have been hit hard by it and have had a lot of challenges, with the spread, it definitely is affecting everybody across the board. So, we're definitely being very, for sort of forward thinking. We're being aggressive in our approach to help our dealerships, but we're also taking into consideration that anybody that calls us that says, hey, I need some sort of a price concession, or we're shut down for 30 days, we're talking it through and figuring out what we can do to still help them, but maybe at a discounted rate for a short time, that type of thing. And the dealerships that I've talked to have loved that aspect of it. So.
Well, I'll chat on that just a bit as well, because when we're facing the same thing here, our surrounding dealers is laying people off left and right. But one of the things that we've done differently is exactly what you're talking about, is we're getting that message out there. We're telling people what we're doing. We're telling them that we're going to question them when they come in and how we're keeping the dealership up. And it's giving them the confidence to come to us. Whereas the rest of them are just sitting out there thinking that everything's doom and just shrinking their business. Well, if things cycle around in 2 weeks, they can't recover that quick in 2 weeks. It takes them time to recover. Whereas if we can keep everything together, we just keep right on rolling as things cycle back up. So it's delivering the message. It's doing something and let them know that you're doing something for their safety.
Yeah.
That came up in last week's conversation on our automotive consumer experience panel. And we got to talking about how, the messaging right now on your website, how do you alter your messaging and really, focus on what people are going to respond to. And, I think the consensus was focus on the vehicle service and repair. And that data that you shared, Owen, really suggests that. Let me turn to Matt real quick about a recent article that your company, Revolution Parts, came out, 4 ways that COVID-19 will impact your parts department. Before you start, Matt, I'll just do a quick orientation for those that have joined us after we got started. You're here on our Fixed Op Strategies webcast panel. And we stream this live on YouTube, so you might be watching the recording at some point. I'm sharing links in the live chat to the things that we're talking about. And then also after the panel's done, within a day or two, I usually go in the comments and leave clickable time markers to the pieces of conversation. I put the links in there as well so that people can bounce around and hit things they want. But Matt, I'll bring up the article while you're talking and maybe let you kind of speak to these, these 4 different ways that as the article suggests.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think it's really interesting what's going on in these times with, social distancing and the fact that, across the board, like Ed, the numbers you're sharing about the drop in service and sales, really, that's a lot better than what we're hearing with a lot of dealerships on the phone. More like 40 and 50% less in service lane across the board. And as everyone's been talking about, Owen mentioned it too, a lot of dealerships are reacting and being reactive and laying people off and freezing different things that they're doing right now, instead of taking the approach that you're taking and changing the way you're doing business in a way that's more effective in this kind of a situation, right? So even in the states that are doing this shelter in place, their parts and service side of things are still working. And some of them are able to have, do some online things for customers to still be able to purchase vehicles that way. But to kind of break down a little bit about what's going on in this article, the first part talking about, social distancing, and consumers have already been shopping online way before this all started. More and more customers. And a recent article that I read stated that what was 20% of the overall retail side of things is moving to 40 and 50%. And customers are staying home. DIYers have more time on their hands to go online and to look at parts and find what they're looking at. And maybe something that wasn't as much of a focus because they were in the office doing work, now they have more time to get at it now. And another part of it, to get back to what we're talking about with, service and being able to have a delivery service, that's becoming a huge focal point right now. If a dealership isn't doing anything right now, or they don't have drivers, or they laid people off, they have to find a different way of getting those parts or getting those essential things to customers. One of the things that we're doing right now to help with that is something called local delivery. And we've actually got a partnership that we've recently started with DoorDash and Postmates, and we're adding some other suppliers as well that will actually be able to pick up and deliver parts and accessories to different dealerships or even to the customer's home. If you don't have a driver or someone that can do that for you, especially for those guys that have laid people off or had a small parts and service department in the beginning, and now they need to find a new way of reaching out to those customers. We can support them with that. In terms of what's happening on our side of the business, we're still seeing customers that are already used to buying online continuing to buy, and we're seeing more visits to our sites than we have in the past. And really, to me, I feel like as this continues to go, regardless of how long this ends up going, I feel like customers are moving more online and are going to start looking for those places first, even if it's something that they weren't doing in the past. Other generations that were used to just straight going into a shop or going into a dealership to ask a question or to look about something, they're starting online more and more. And so we're seeing that increase now. In March, April, and May specifically is historically a huge time. And we thought we may see a big decrease in what's going on, but we're not seeing that. And, another part that we're talking about in this is, supply chain issues and time for people in the dealership. A lot of guys are like what Ed's doing, guys that would usually have this job no longer have that job to do right now. So they're finding a different thing for them to do. And there may be more opportunity and more time to start onboarding some of these different online strategies to look at parts and accessories or to support the fix up side of the business to make up the difference while service and sales are a lower percentage right now.
These are great points. I certainly want to actually turn to Ed and Jeff. I'm curious, the the OEM supplies, right, as the article suggests. And thank you, Matt, for kind of walking through that. I was scanning through it for the first time as you're talking. They're really good points. Is your dealership affected at all by supply right now?
We're planning ahead for that. We started Friday driving in some of our fast moving stuff. We typically turn our inventory 13 times a year, so just because of a space standpoint. So I've asked my parts manager, and we've worked on that Friday, Monday, and today to get us 60 days worth of inventory rather than 27 days worth of inventory, because we know that there's a good possibility that some of that stuff's going to dry up, whether it's because of a shipping standpoint or that the plant shut down or a factory shut down or whatever else. So we're planning as far ahead as we can. Hopefully we plan far enough ahead and don't run out of that, but we understand that can become an issue and that may be a hindrance, but we're trying to prevent it as much as we can.
Brian, can I jump in there for a second and share some information? My name is Lumena Litz. I'm the owner of QB Business Solutions. We pretty much live in the warranty retail compensation world. So we're communicating with both sides. We're communicating with the dealer side as well as the OEM, the factory side. So what I have found to be very interesting is, much like Ed, dealers are stepping out and doing things differently, trying to channel all of their staff in the right directions to maximize on some of it. Someone mentioned earlier, and I think it might have been Jeff, I wasn't sure, but or even you, Ryan, people in California. I've got a huge GM store that I'm working with out of California. They have seen, like you had, like 15, 20% down, but their brand is still there. This is a GM brand, so domestic, even though you heard the big three closed in Centerline, Michigan, they're still there. The OEMs, the factories, they're now returning to what all have had, technology. So that stay at home, they're realizing that now there are people that are at home working. They're utilizing different features like Dropbox, so they can send to and from data back and forth. So shared knowledge, shared information. It's interesting, just so you all know, that the brands are looking to do just what you guys are doing, which is become more user-friendly off-site. You have other access to them because that's exactly what they're doing. Imports and domestic. I've spoke to both import and domestic in the last 2 days. And most of the people I'm talking to on the brand side, they're home. They're working, dialing into a VPN, or they're in the Dropbox window where I'm sending them data so that they can open it through a link. So that's kind of new for everybody. So this is going to stem a whole new way of doing business going forward on both sides.
Jeff, what is your thought on the vehicle inventory? I think you're muted, Jeff. You have to mute.
Yeah, you're on mute, Jeff. I can unmute you. Hold on. There you go.
There you go.
On the vehicle inventory side, we were heavy going in. We had actually started at the beginning of March and said we were going to drop our inventory about 20%. So we were on a path. So if the manufacturers slow down and some of the inventory gets tight, I think we'll be fine coming through it. We actually needed to cut back on it a little bit anyway. So I think a long stop in inventory would obviously have a huge effect on everybody. But short term, as long as it's a 30-day, 45, 60-day deal, it shouldn't create any big issues. I would think nationwide. I think everybody was reasonably full anyway.
No commentary. I was trying to just set up the next talking point, because based off of Matt, what you shared in the article about service pickup and drop off, I think Revolution Parts has a new delivery service, right?
Yeah. It's if I can explain that just a little bit here, it's called Local Delivery.
Okay, local delivery, yeah.
And we actually use DoorDash and Postmates now. So whether it's for the service or just for a parts customer, you can set up deliveries. As long as it's something that can fit in a sedan, we can send it to basically anybody within a 45-minute or an hour drive of the dealership or pickups. If Ed needs a part from a sister store and he doesn't have someone to go pick it up, you can set that up. Or if there's a customer that's at home that needs a rotor for a do-it-yourself kind of situation, he can also still facilitate a customer.
And what I'd like to do, Jeffrey Infeld and John Passamato are here because during our automotive consumer panel last week, what came up in that conversation was related to the shuttle service, in the service department and that consumer experience. So Jeffrey, in your conversations with dealers, now that there's this critical need for more, maybe not even shuttling service customers, but just getting cars to and from customers.
Sure.
What's changed? What are you seeing in your dialogue with dealers right now? And
Okay.
a quick intro about Quick Ride so that everybody here understands where you're coming from.
Sure. Yeah, we're Quick Ride. We run a software solution that started for dealer shuttles. It does an Uber-like software makeover so that dealers can use their own shuttles the way Ubers operate. And it's very efficient for their customers. It's a very modern approach to getting the customer the high satisfaction where they need to go back and forth using their own vehicles and controlling what we call 100% of that experience. And, I really appreciate what Ed and Jeff have been talking about in a real world scenario, because what we're hearing from our dealers is it's a very, very fluid situation. I mean, I'm doing this webcast right here from an extra bedroom in my house because my daughter just got back from Italy 12 days ago and she's in quarantine in my office upstairs. And, so we're just in one household. We've got this wild ecosystem. So she's fine, no symptoms, but, we have to be very, very cautious. So, and like you guys are pointing out, every state has its own fluid situation. So our dealers are all across the spectrum where they're doing everything and anything like Ed and Jeff are doing, where they'll do pickup and drop off and valet and query customers before they walk onto the lot to see if they're healthy enough to be there. Our dealers are using our software to be able to facilitate pickup and drop off, a concierge valet service. They're using it for mobile mechanics, so they're getting in their license for that. They can get out on the road and fix vehicles at the home of the customer. So we're evolving into this real sentiment of dealership to home environment, and we're solving all those touch points that are happening along that way. So we've been busy. We're really focused on helping dealers succeed in this environment right now, and make this win so they can use our software in any way they want to use it. Shuttles, what we've been seeing for that aspect is the dealers that do want to keep some shuttles available. You basically, instead of putting 6 people in a shuttle, our software will allow you to just notify to put 3 people in a shuttle, or 2 people, or 1 person. And so that you can use our software to practice social distancing if you still have a shuttle run that you want to make for your customers. Of course, just like Ed says, notifying the customer is important. We wipe down the vehicles, sanitize it after every run. We want to make sure your health and safety is very, very important to us. And since we can control that, we feel comfortable putting you into our shuttle because, it's not like outsourcing to a third-party service or a ride share where we don't know how many people get in and out of that vehicle. So there are some still efforts being put forth on the shuttle side. Obviously, you don't want a senior citizen driving the shuttle, even though in normal times they're the best people driving that because they are friendly and warm and create a great environment for that dealership. They represent that dealership well, but now you're going to want to put your 20, 25-year-old porter to drive that vehicle just for, again, the safety of your employees, if you want to even run the shuttle service at all. But what we see dealers really focused on is what they call contactless pickup and delivery. So get the vehicle, get it back to the dealership, sanitize it with a nice note, get it back to the customer with the keys been sanitized as well, and get the key in a bag back to the customer. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
You know, that I think what you're speaking to is really key. And John P, before I turn to you, kind of want to ask Owen here, because you know, Owen, your company is working with dealers on their messaging, right? On their service
Mhm.
and parts messaging. And Jeffrey, that's not the first time that's come up. Is we have to clean and sanitize. Ed even mentioned it inside the store, inside these cars. That's a messaging opportunity there, I think, that dealers need to really be mindful of with their marketing messaging, right? Website, email, even when they're on the phones in their BDC department. Would you agree these things need to be communicated, and that picture needs to be painted there?
Yeah, and actually, as Jeffrey was talking, I actually was thinking about that. I'm like, the nice thing about our company, about Fixed Ops Digital, is that we can take a lot of different scenarios, different technologies, different processes. Kind of what sets. Typically we would call them kind of like what sets you apart. But in this case, it's more just what other types of technology or vendors is the dealership using. Let us take that message and put it to life, because you're right, doing your own ride shares. We had a conversation yesterday internally about that, even though we don't really focus as much on the sales side with Fixed Ops Digital, it's we've been a slow industry to go with technology, right? A lot of dealerships, kind of said, digital retailing, that's coming, using technology inside the service bays to show customers, other things that are wrong, paying online, stuff like that. These are all things that some dealerships have really embraced and really gone after and sort of made a part of their normal everyday. And some dealerships really haven't. So I think it's going to catch up with a lot of people now if they haven't really embraced that. And more importantly, we're going to see a big shift towards it even after we come out of this. I think once we come out of this and everybody kind of says, okay, it's safe now to get back and run your business and all that, I think some of these different technologies are going to be sticky now, and they're going to start to really become a new part of how consumers expect to integrate and to have conversations with the dealership. Doesn't always have to be face to face these days, and I think we're seeing that really come to fruition here. So
I think you hit that right on the head there, Owen. We're seeing the same kind of thing, across the board. The automotive industry historically has been slow to adopt online or digital tools, and I think your response to what's going to happen in the future is right on track. I think this is going to be something that really influences a lot of those that were sitting on the sidelines or not sure if online or digital tools were really important for the dealerships today, that are going to start realizing, hey, this is, not just for the situation, but for going forward and doing business, this is the way customers want to be served.
So let me echo that and tell kind of an interesting story. Our business is for dealers, a platform for in-app car rental. So there's no face-to-face. They can turn into ownership with optional ownership, really, a path to ownership at the customer's discretion with part of the rental fee going towards ownership. Well, all of a sudden now we've become very, very popular. And this is a brand new thing for dealers because we hit two hot buttons. One is everything's in app, so it's digital contracting and everything. So there's no interaction, person to person. And the second is financial commitment, because everyone's nervous about taking on a long-term loan or taking on a long-term lease or a lot of cash. Well, now this is a rental that can move into an optional purchase whenever that's allowed in some of the states, that I'm in right now. And it hits the consumer's hot button. So absolutely, to echo what Owen and Matt said, it's, a few weeks ago it was hey, this is a novel thing for a dealer. Now it's literally survival, because rentals are allowed, but sales aren't in some of these states, right? So a dealer can engage a customer, use the salesperson, doesn't take very much, have the customer lock into the rental and do the rental completely remotely, deliver the car, and then at the point they're allowed to sell, flip that into a sale. Or even in those states where they're allowed to sell, right, people are nervous. They don't want to put out a lot of cash. It was just said that's why they're repairing cars. Well, this gets them into the car that they want, right? But on an interim basis, they're renting and they can commit at any time. Again, we're real popular now. We were a novelty, kind of an early adopter item a month ago. Now all of a sudden, in some states, it's the only way dealers can keep customers engaged in the sales and variable operations at all.
I'm going to
Amazing
get a
how
little
fast
hype.
things change, huh?
Say that again, Ed.
It's amazing how fast things change. The whole
Well,
world's
and
changing
that's
about 10
that's
days.
the silver lining here. Is he echoed, and it's 100% true. There are a lot of stores and a lot of dealers that just don't change what they're doing. This is going to provoke a lot of change, and I think in a very good way. You talk about the Carvana threat. Well, everyone knew a big piece of that was simply the pickup and delivery. Now it's a necessity across the board. I don't think we'll ever go back to the day when dealers don't stress that. Frankly, I think customers will demand it.
Who was it? I think it was John Robertson, who was on the panel last week from Ship Your Car Now. And the way he put this made me chuckle because we've been hearing it for the past 10 years. He said he had a dealer tell him, John, you don't understand my business. The purpose of my internet department is to get people in the showroom to buy a car. Right? That's how he put it. That's the purpose of the internet department. And just the way he said it just kind of made me think like that's been the mode of operation since the internet's come around. Just get those internet shoppers into the showroom and sell them a car. And now that paradigm, I think the consensus is that mindset will probably fade away really fast. I would get a little hypothetical going back to like the messaging and the sanitizing and the cleaning, right? I would get I say hypothetical in the sense that when it comes to a disease such as COVID, where we have to come up with a preventative cure for it, right? The flu is incredibly contagious, but its incubation period is only a couple of days. So typically you're not going to infect very many people because you're very noticeably sick, right? Very quickly. With COVID, that's different. And that's the nature of the virus won't change, right? It's going to be that way for the foreseeable future. So until we have a preventative, vaccine so that fewer people actually have it, we're going to all have to be mindful of not getting like, when we interact with people, what disease am I going to get from you? I don't see that part changing, which goes back to these protective measures are probably here for the foreseeable future. Anybody disagree? Or
Well, and I do think I agree, Ryan. I think it is getting a little blown out of. I mean, not saying it's getting blown out of proportion because the threat is real, but I heard even last night that New York, which is one of the biggest hotbeds right now, the chance of you giving somebody COVID-19 is 1 in 100,000. So it's still very low. The problem is you're exactly right. We don't have an immunity to it. We don't have a vaccine for it. So we're in a very weird territory here that, or time of this, that we're in the uncertainty, right? Once the vaccination is perfected, which is going to take a year and that sort of thing, there's a lot of jokes and memes on the internet and rightfully so, people kind of using it as a way to sort of mask maybe their fears. But talking about, if it took this to get people to like wash their hands and be cleanliness, then what the heck are we doing as a society? But I believe that it will open a lot of eyes, right? People will start to realize that, hey, I've got to, be a little more, more cleanly in all the parts of my life, not just when I go into a store or when I'm running a store, because I think a lot of that stuff gets a little bit lackadaisical over time, and then it ends up being a problem, so.
Yep. Yeah. It's permanent. I mean, permanent. Stuff like this lasts for a generation, and then, then history has to repeat itself. Lumena, I know you had, you have a lot of conversations with dealers, mostly related to their warranty reimbursement process, but is this situation, and you're on mute, by the way, for when you're ready to talk, is this situation, you know, are you seeing any noticeable differences, either increase or decrease in warranty work? And how's your process with dealers changed over the past few weeks?
Mainly just in communicating that they stay the course and they're conscious of how they conduct themselves, just like Ed and Matt have shared in their world, and recognizing their customer. It hasn't really changed much for us because it will still, there are the vehicles that we are looking at or that they're servicing, they are already sold, they are under warranty, they are still coming to the dealers. People will be coming to the dealers that are doing what Ed is doing, making sure that they know it's safe to come to them and that it's okay to come there, and reaching out, letting them know we're still here for you as a business. Just as we have done to all of our dealers, we're still here for you. In our office, even though we are not the size of an automobile dealership, we all have separate offices, but we have, you know, common areas that we all share. So we're all very conscious the same way, even here. So with respect to that, the dealers that are really engaged aren't really seeing that bad of an impact, and they're just taking and grabbing hold of what is there and making the best out of it and using it wisely. So the warranty rate increase, I think, as far as the dealership will be, they're going to go after what they can. Obviously, we always chase retail revenue, but when you make your warranty the same as retail revenue, now you have a different ballpark. So typically in the business, a warranty customer is only worth $100 an hour, where a paid customer might be worth $150. So when we bridge that gap and you are worth 145 and 150, now you're talking a whole different revenue stream. So they go after that and make sure that they're not leaving that opportunity behind their client. And then it's a win-win for both sides. They get their warranty, retail, and an oil change or whatever else the vehicle may need. So it's not a financial loss.
Owen had to exit while you were talking, but I can't help but wonder if this might be an opportune time for the service departments to really focus on those more obscure, you know, warranty opportunities. Ed, from your side, does it seem like a good time to maybe allocate resources towards that?
Well, from changing the rate, Ford's got to kind of be in the office for some of that. Some of that may be put on hold for them, but we did that late last year and moved our rate dramatically. What we're focusing on now is capitalizing on that. Would my traffic be off more than 20% if I wasn't driving things in? Yes, it certainly would. But I'm driving. We're a big recall store. Luna says she likes recalls. I love recalls. It gives us a chance to introduce customers to our store again, some that may have never been there. And so we're working all the recall lists and driving as much of that traffic in as possible. And I'm doing it at a high rate because we changed our warranty rate. And when you can make up that value, as I said, my RO value, my transaction values went up during this time. It's because we prepared for that, not knowing that it was coming. But if you continually do the right things, she hit the nail on the head with engagement. If you're engaged in what you're doing and you're doing the right things, then it just becomes natural as it comes into place when you need it.
Well, folks, I think we should wrap this up. As panelists, any last thoughts that you want to chime in on before we wrap this up?
One thing for dealerships I'd say is, I know there's a lot of fear out there and things that are going on. But as we've discussed on this panel, online and digital tools, if you're not already using it, now is the time to start using something like that to help you not only get through this, but make you more effective as we get out of this going forward. And then we've all got different tools here that can help the dealership, provide a better experience while also helping deal with the social distancing and all that kind of stuff. So if you're a dealership that's on the fence or been thinking about it or haven't done anything in any of these areas, now is the time to start looking at these things.
I can't help but feel more, convicted at the essential role, that the essentialness, if that's the right term, of a dealership. Not, going back to that tweet that I shared where the person on Twitter was arguing that, it's a non-essential. It's to me, it's essential for our economy. It's one of those things. The dealership operation is one of those things that we can keep open in operation, and that's good for everybody. John, are the no sale states that you mentioned, New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, they're not prohibiting the service, I assume, it's just sales?
Service and parts are open, but any sale is prohibited, online or otherwise. DMVs are closed, so you can't, actually do any of the title work online. And I mean, it's devastating. I mean, variable operations are being closed down across the board with every dealership. I mean, I don't think this piece was very well thought out, frankly. No,
that's the part I find frustrating, and I hope that we as a community. I mean, it's almost like you feel powerless, right? And that's a horrible feeling. It's like you're taking away something we have a right to do, and it doesn't even seem necessary. What we're going to add to,
as Jeff mentioned, you've got government vehicles being delivered, and NADA had the statistic: 1.8 million lease returns are happening between March and June. That's 1.8 needs-based vehicles that have to be delivered, and you're taking away the consumer's right to buy. You're taking away the dealer's right to sell, right? And it doesn't make any sense when you've got rental companies actually renting all the time, right? I mean, I can see that you don't want a collective group in any one place, but certainly we've got tools that can facilitate online. I mean, we're slowly getting dealers back on board with the rent, with the option to buy, because that's okay. But this whole mass closure, it's really devastating. I can't remember anything like this in my lifetime, right? And again, I don't think it's super well thought out, because again, the intent is for groups not to congregate. Well, you certainly do this without groups congregating, right?
Yeah.
So I don't understand it.
Absolutely.
They're all still going to grocery stores anyway, right? So
exactly.
And
the best thing too, I'd say, is the dealers are the right bunch to figure this out. They have proven time and time again, they have the resources, they have the know-how, the ingenuity to weather these storms and overcome. So even under these situations, they still have in the states that essential personnel are in the service and parts areas, they're going to figure it out. And they're going to keep the lights on, and they're in their best intention with their employees and keeping their public safety. They are pillars of the community, and they are the best local business per se to figure it out. So we just have to do our part. Like, for example, at Quick Ride, we're making our software free for 60 days for this pickup and drop off and mobile mechanics and all this other infrastructure stuff they need right away. Just to kind of stay in the game with everybody, do our part. And that's
we're starting to do something similar.
Yeah.
And Jeff King, I think earlier when we started, you mentioned that Bozard has 675 government vehicles on order. Is that right?
On order that have not been delivered yet. Now, again, a lot of them haven't been produced. They're in various stages of production, but there's at least 100, 150 of them that are produced or ready to be shipped. So, we have that obligation to get those out to them as well.
And that's probably a common scenario for most dealerships out there, right?
Especially if they do any fleet or any government work.
Yeah. All right. Panelists, thank you so much. Thank you. I hope each of you, gain some new insights out of this. Matt, thank you to Nikki and the Revolution Parts team. It was a great piece that you shared. A lot of good value there. I put the link in the live chat, and I'll also be putting it in the comments afterwards. Lumena, it was great to have you on your first official panel. Lumena and I have been working basically since the beginning of the year. Her and Thomas Hall at QB Business Solutions. A lot of great conversations out of NADA. And Ed, you and I had a conversation there.
Yes.
And, I think one of the my big takeaways from NADA and those conversations was the shortage in service technicians. It's really kind of opened up, because I've seen it as a headline, right, over the past year or so, but it really kind of hit home. And I think that's an important, narrative for us to focus on as well. Ed, thank you for, making it again. And Jeff King, great meeting you. And I hope you enjoyed your time here.
Thanks for having me.
And sharing with us. And John and Jeffrey, great to have you guys back and really putting, some good contrast into things. Welcome to stay here while I take us offline. If you got to go, you got to go. Jeffrey, I did want to ask you a question. If you're able to hang on about your own personal quarantine. So, let me do just a quick final orientation here. 1 second here for everybody. Make sure I get the right, there we go. So again, this is our fixed op strategy session. This is one of 6 different auto retail marketing webcasts that we do on a periodic basis. Each of them is streamed live on our YouTube channel and then featured at some point on the AutoConverse Mobility Tech and Connectivity podcast. In fact, you can see the most recent one there is Owning Your Recall Business. Ed, when I think we did that as far back as November.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
Excellent podcast there.
Yeah, more important now than ever.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it is. So if once the live stream ends, the link to the recording becomes unlisted. And so the best way to get the links to the recordings, because you can't always watch them live, is being subscribed to our YouTube channel, which pretty much where you see us posting, we have links. And that way you can tune in on your own time and watch the recording. I put clickable, time markers in there so you can skip around more easily. But if you want to get up here on the webinar, I'm going to mute Lumena. If you want to get up here on the webinar to participate as a panelist, like you saw today, or even just be able to raise your hand and ask questions to the panelists, what you need to do is get registered. It's a one-time registration for each different series. So get yourself registered, and that'll automatically include you month over month. And that's the best way to get dialed in to all of this stuff. So thanks again, everyone. I'm going to take us offline and wrap it up. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ryan.